Hey guys, welcome back to another Understanding Scientology by Marjorie Wakefield. Today we're going to keep on chugging along on Chapter 2, so stay tuned to see what we cover today. Hey guys, so we're going to continue on Chapter 2 today, and we're going to start off with the arrival of L. Ron Hubbard's second child. So here we go. Another child arrived in 1936, a daughter, Catherine. Hubbard moved his small family to Bremerton, Washington, where his parents had settled and where Ron and Polly bought a small house. Hubbard spent the next few years shuttling between Bremerton and New York City, where he made frequent trips to fraternize with fellow adventure writers. In gatherings with other writers, Hubbard was invariably the center of attention, entertaining the others present with his yarns and tall tales. In 1938, John Campbell, the editor of Astounding Science Fiction magazine, persuaded Ron to try his hand at science fiction. The result was successful, and Hubbard's stories in the genre began to appear regularly, alongside his regular adventure stories and westerns. During this same year, there is a curious story about Hubbard. He apparently began to tell friends that he had written an important book called Excalibur, which he claimed would have greater impact on people than the Bible. He seemed quite excited about this book. He told his wife that it would earn him a place in history, yet strangely, no one ever saw the book. Hubbard claimed the first 6 people to read this book were so overwhelmed by its contents that they went out of their minds. He claimed that the inspiration for the book came from an out-of-body experience he had under nitrous oxide while at the dentist. To prevent any more casualties, he claimed to have the book safely hidden. Although Hubbard would mention this book from time to time, its existence has never been proven. In 1939 and 1940, Hubbard continued to write, producing several famous stories such as Fear, Typewriter in the Sky, and Final Blackout. His stories were still known and read by science fiction fans throughout the country, to whom the name L. Ron Hubbard is associated with science fiction and not with a controversial cult. So, he claimed, this is where he switches over to science fiction, which is what really garnered his immediate success. He still wrote his adventures and his westerns, but his real success came from his science fiction writings. But he also claimed to write this book called Excalibur. Now, I've heard this from other places as well, that Excalibur is actually what started Dianetics. He wrote Excalibur, and then he wrote Dianetics later, but nobody's ever actually laid their hands on Excalibur. So, some people believe he just made up Excalibur as another one of his things to kind of voice his need for his ego to be stroked. And in all accounts of Excalibur, he's always said that everybody that's ever read it went mad. Well, why didn't you go mad writing it? Kind of thing. In 1941, as the United States was drawn into the Second World War, Hubbard was determined to get into the Navy. When a friend of his, who was a senator, obligingly gave him some official stationery, Hubbard composed his own letter of recommendation for the military. Fraud? This will introduce one of the most brilliant men I have ever known, Captain L. Ron Hubbard. He writes under 6 names in a diversity of fields, from political economy to action fiction, and if he would make at least one of his pen names public, he would have little difficulty entering anywhere. He has published many millions of words and some 14 movies. In exploration, he has honorably carried the flag of Explorers Club and has extended geographical and mineralogical knowledge. He is well known in many parts of the world and has considerable influence in the Caribbean and Alaska. As a key figure in writing organizations, he has considerable political worth, and in the Northwest, he is a powerful influence. I have known him for many years and have found him discreet, loyal, honest, and without peer in the art of getting things done swiftly. If Captain Hubbard requests help, be assured that it will benefit others more than himself. For courage and ability, I cannot too strongly recommend him. In July of 1941, L. Ron Hubbard entered the Navy as lieutenant in the U.S. Naval Reserve. Hubbard's stories of his naval career serve as an example of his most outrageous fiction writing. The official Scientology account of Hubbard's naval career reads: Commissioned before the war in 1941. By the U.S. Navy, Hubbard was ordered to the Philippines at the outbreak of the war in the U.S. and was flown home in the late spring of 1942 in the Secretary of the Navy's private plane as the first U.S. returned casualty from the Far East. He served in the South Pacific, and in 1942 was relieved by 15 officers of rank and was rushed home to take part in the 1952 battle against German submarines as commanding officer of a covert serving in the North Atlantic. In 1943, he was made Commodore of Covert Squadrons, and in 1944 he worked with amphibious forces. After serving in all 5 theaters of World War II and receiving 21 medals and palms, in 1944 he was severely wounded and was taken crippled and blinded to Oak Knoll Naval Hospital. Another official biography continues. Crippled and blinded at the end of the war, he resumed his studies of philosophy and by his discoveries recovered so fully that he was reclassified in 1949 for full combat duty. It is a matter of medical record that he has twice been pronounced dead and that in 1950 he was given a perfect score on mental and physical fitness reports. I don't give a damn how much Kool-Aid you drink. None of that makes sense. None of it. But let's debunk it. The truth about Hubbard's war career, although quite different and no less interesting, Hubbard's first job in the Navy was a desk job in public relations. His job was to write stories featuring the American servicemen for various national publications. However, this did not fit with the image that Hubbard had of himself as a war hero, so he soon requested and was awarded a transfer to Naval Intelligence. On December 7th, 1941, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor and war was officially declared. On December 18th of 1941, Hubbard was posted as an intelligence officer to the Philippines. In Brisbane, Australia, while waiting for a ship to Manila, the words will eventually work. Hubbard managed to so antagonize his superior officers that he was sent home with an entry in his record stating that this officer is not satisfactory for independent duty assignment. He is garrulous and tries to give impressions of his importance. He also seems to think he has unusual ability in most lines. These characteristics indicate that he will require close supervision for satisfactory performance of any intelligence duty. The report also added that Hubbard had become the source of much trouble. Not surprising. Hubbard was then sent to San Francisco and given a post in the office of the cable censor, another desk job. 2 months later, bored with his duties as cable censor, Hubbard requested sea duty and was made the commanding officer of the USS Ch2 Pt2, a converted Navy gunboat. Hubbard went to Neponset, Massachusetts, where the gunboat was being refitted, but he was relieved of command before the boat sailed because of difficulty that he had with the commandant of the Navy Yard. Again, a report was filed in his service record stating that he was not temperamentally fit for independent command. Anticipating another desk job, Hubbard's spirits rose when he found that he was being sent to the Submarine Chaser Training Center in Miami, Florida. After the completion of his studies in Miami and a 10-day anti-submarine warfare course in Key West, Florida, Hubbard was once again entrusted by the Navy with the command of the 280-ton subchaser, the USS PC-815. In May of 1943, Hubbard sailed his ship out of the Navy shipyard in Portland, Oregon. The ship was to sail from Portland to San Diego on her first shakedown cruise. Just off the coast of Oregon, Hubbard and his crew made a surprise discovery of 2 enemy submarines in the coastal waters, right in the middle of a busy shipping lane. 6 depth charges were fired at the enemy subs, joined by another subchaser. 7 more charges were fired. Soon the U.S. Coast Guard ship came to the rescue to replenish the depleted supply of depth charges aboard Hubbard's ship. The PC-815 continued to attack, delivering all 27 depth charges. The crew on deck anxiously scanning the waters for signs of the destroyed enemy sub surfacing on the water. The PC-815 was ordered to return to shore, where an investigation was called into the unusual battle, and because of the proximity of the enemy submarines to the Oregon coast, the conclusion of the investigating body was that there were no enemy submarines in the area patrolled by Hubbard's ship, but that there were known magnetic deposits in that area. The conclusion reached was that Hubbard and his crew had just fought a 2-day battle with a suboceanic magnetic deposit. Hubbard, as expected, took some good-natured ribbing from other officers for his battle with a magnetic deposit, but he was not relieved of his command. In May of 1943, he sailed his ship to San Diego with no misadventures, but while moored off the coast of San Diego, his ship strayed into Mexican territorial waters, and Hubbard ordered a test firing of the ship's guns directly at a nearby Corondos Island. An official complaint was lodged by the Mexican government, and the Board of Investigations was held, as a result of which Hubbard was once again relieved of his duties and transferred elsewhere. In a fitness report covering Hubbard's Navy career, to this point he was evaluated as below average. and the following notation was placed in his record. Consider this officer's lacking in the essential qualities of judgment, leadership, and cooperation. He acts without forethought as to probable results. He is believed to have been sincere in his efforts to make his ship efficient and ready, not considered qualified for command or promotion at this time. Recommend duty on a large vessel where he can be properly supervised. After this, Hubbard spent 3 months in a naval hospital in San Diego, complaining of a variety of ailments ranging from an ulcer to malaria and back pains. In a letter to his family, he reported that he had thrown an unexploded shell from his ship and it exploded in mid-air, injuring him. In October of 1943, Hubbard was assigned to take a 6-week course at the Naval Small Craft Training Center at Terminal Island in San Pedro, California. He was subsequently made navigating officer of the USS Angol. In January, he made this depressed entry in his personal journal. My salvation is to let this roll over me. To write, and write some more. To hammer keys until I am finger worn to the second joint, and then to hammer keys some more. To pile up copies, stack up stories, roll the wardage, and generally conduct my life along the one line of success I have ever had. Which is true. That is the one line of success he has ever had. That and manipulating millions of people into a cult. As the Algo prepared to go into battle in the Pacific Theater, Hubbard applied for transfer to the School of Military Government at Princeton University, and although this transfer was approved in a strange incident which occurred just before the Algo sailed to the Pacific, Hubbard discovered a homemade gasoline bomb in a Coke bottle amidst the cargo being loaded on the ship. There was an investigation into the curious incident, but the results of the investigation were not recorded. However, that evening, Hubbard was relieved of duty and sent to Princeton, where he completed a 4-month training course. In September of 1945, Hubbard was transferred to Monterey, California for further training. He reported in sick with a suspected ulcer and was hospitalized at Oak Knoll Military Hospital in Oakland, California, where he remained until December 5, 1945, when he was discharged from the Navy. Contrary to his own report of receiving 21 war medals, he received 4 routine medals, which were awarded to all servicemen serving in this war. As soon as he was released from the Navy, Hubbard, again having no immediate financial prospects, began a series of requests to the Navy to award him a disability pension for injuries and ailments he claimed he sustained during the war. Among the complaints he listed in his claim were a sprained knee, an ulcer, conjunctivitis, arthritis, and malaria. He was eventually awarded a small partial disability rating, and his efforts to have his disability allowance increase continued for several years. In a pathetic letter to the Veteran Administration, dated October 15, 1947, Hubbard writes, "This is a request for treatment after trying and failing for 2 years to regain my equilibrium in civil life. I am utterly unable to approach anything like my own competence. My last physical informed me that I might be very helpful if I were to be examined and perhaps treated psychiatrically or even by a psychoanalyst. Toward the end of my service, I avoided out of pride any mental examinations, hoping that time would balance a mind which I had every reason to suppose was seriously affected. I cannot account for nor rise above long periods of moroseness and suicidal inclinations, and have newly come to this before I can hope to rehabilitate myself at all. I cannot leave school or what little work I am doing for hospitalization due to many obligations, but I feel I might be treated outside, possibly with success. I cannot myself afford such treatment. Would you please help me? Sincerely, L. Ron Hubbard. Now, this is a big step for a man that is such against psychiatry. I mean, the whole stance of Scientology is it's against psychiatry. But remember, this is in the days before psychiatry. He is begging the VA to send him for psychoanalysis or for psychiatric treatment. So this is a huge step for somebody that hates psychiatry. After being discharged from the Navy in December of 1945, Hubbard did not head for home, where Polly and his children were, still living in Bremerton, Washington. He instead headed directly for a house in Pasadena, California, which housed an interesting and eclectic assortment of people, including one Jack Parsons, leader of a satanic organization called the Ordo Templis Ortis. That was the U.S. name for the organization headed in England by infamous black magician Aleister Crowley. So began a new chapter in Hubbard's life, although in actuality it was but the continuation of an old chapter, began reportedly when young Hubbard went as a teenager to the Library of Congress with his mother, and there discovered a book written by Crowley. Thereafter, he was fascinated by Crowley's magic, and Crowley became a mentor for Hubbard, a relationship that would last until Crowley's death in 1947. In one of his later lectures, Hubbard would refer to Crowley as my good friend. Crowley's most famous work was the Book of the Law, in which he expressed his philosophy of the law. It is a philosophy Hubbard would live by throughout his life. Crowley wrote in the Book of the Law, "We have nothing but the outcast and the unfit. Let them die in their misery, for they feel not. Compassion is the vice of kings. Stamp out the wretched and the weak. This is the law of the strong. This is our law, and the joy of the world. I am the snake that giveth knowledge and delight, and stir the hearts of men and with drunkenness. To worship me, take wine and strange drugs. They shall not harm ye at all. It is a lie, this folly against self. Be strong, O man, lust. Enjoy all things of sense and rapture. The kings of the earth shall be kings forever. The slaves shall serve them that take to entrap thee, to overthrow thee. Them attack without pity or quarter, and destroy them utterly. I am unique and conquer. I am not of the slaves that perish. Be they damned and dead. Amen. Pity not the fallen. I never knew them. I am not them. I console not. I hate the consoled and the counselor." Perhaps this explains why in Scientology sympathy is considered to be a low-toned emotion. Scientologists learn in their training not to feel sympathy. According to Ron Hubbard Jr., his father considered himself to be the one who came after, that he was Crowley's successor, that he had taken on the mantle of the great beast. He told him that Scientology actually began on December the 1st, 1947. This was the day Aleister Crowley died. So that is going to end. That's where we're going to end right now. Today, I will pick up on a part 3 in another video. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. Ring the little bell next to the subscribe button so that you are notified every single time that I upload a video. In the comment section down below, let me know what you think of chapter 2 so far. So we have gone up through both of his kids and his first marriage, his naval career, and now we're entering in his post-naval career life. And we're fixing to meet some very major players in L. Ron Hubbard's life. Why do you think L. Ron Hubbard didn't go home to his family after he got out of the Navy? Do you think it's because he's ashamed of what happened in the Navy? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. In the description box, I will have chapter 2 linked so that you can read along with me or ahead of me or whatever you want to do. Also, my Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and email will be all linked down there so that you can find me across the internet if you want to talk to me on any of those platforms. But that's going to do it for today, guys, and I will see you on the next one. Bye for now.